action. Okay. So we did my lesson, and mine was in grade 9 polynomials. So it's short and sweet. We just basically picked out 4 of the slides that were really critical, because in my lesson about 6 of the slides were just examples, and so we kind of just put them all together in one generalized statement for some of them. So initially, my first activity was I asked to compare the following expressions using algebra tiles and to justify your comparisons. So what it looked like before was that there was, red is negative in this case, 4 negative x squared algebra tiles, 2 negative x algebra tiles, and 1 negative 1 algebra tile. And then in the second one, it was just rearranged, but everything was the same color. Initially when I did it, the algebra tiles were actually working. They're not right now. So they were all white, and they were kind of hard to see when dealing with it. So we had 2 solutions to this. You could either compare them, again, with a different color background. Therefore, the white would stick out a little bit more. It doesn't add any more color just because you're still dealing with all the negatives, but you could change the background color so that they don't go in so much. Or you could just actually revamp the questions and change the signs. Notice here you have a positive 4x squared now, a positive 2x, and still you're given a negative so you can see how they compare from one another. So that's one thing you could do, because then you have 4x squared tiles that are positive, 2x tiles that are positive, and 1 negative, our calibration's a little off, and 1 negative 1 tile. Therefore, it gives you a little bit of color, and had you seen it when the algebra tiles were working, it would change things a little bit.
For the second example we did here, she had them give the definition of a polynomial, similarities and differences and all that stuff, but it was very teacher directed. There's just a lot of the teacher up at the board doing all this kind of stuff, tripping on chords, and yeah, so it's, and even like after the pre-internship, you learn that being at the board all the time is not super fun. So the way it was changed is make it more student directed. So the first example would be teacher guided, but after that, students would get into partners and be assigned a term to derive a definition. Then there would be a jigsaw. So it kind of gets the students maybe up around, moving into groups. I don't know, you can kind of go a bunch of different ways with this. Depends on the class, I guess, how you would want to do that. But yeah, we just feel it'd be better just to get more students' involvement within the questions, because
Okay.
So in Kim's lesson before, she just had these 2 questions on the board, and she asked the students what the answers were and if they could justify their answers. And we changed it to, we'd make these questions into an exit slip. So every student had to answer, not just the one that raised their hand and spoke up and could answer. So it would be a good assessment tool to make sure that everyone in the class was understanding the lesson and understanding what the main point of the lesson would be, I guess.
Yeah, that way we don't just see that Timmy knows what's going on with the rest.
Gives them more time to think their answers through, rather than just whoever can answer the quickest or the fastest.
Last but certainly not the least was at the end of my lesson, we had numerous examples, numerous slides of examples that just changed slightly, and basically I was up at the board expecting the students to guide me through it, but really still very teacher directed. But after, there was 3 different sets of questions with 3 each inside the set. So what I figured would be a good idea is that the first example of each set would be slightly more teacher directed, just so they get to understand the general concept. But from there on in, they would work on the next 2 examples of each set by themselves or with a partner, and they could either, like the Japanese video, they could either get help from the teacher, the hint cards around the classroom, or other students. And after that, a group discussion would follow with the ideas that they came up with rather than the ideas I preached to them. Do you guys have any suggestions or comments or questions from any of these? Anybody?